Um, this is not the only book Mr. Shahryar Kabir has authored. He has written many other books on the persecution. He also writes regularly in Bangladesh national dailies on the state of affairs of human rights generally and on the repression of the minorities in particular. Ladies and gentlemen, before 1947, our ancestors used to think that there should be two nations in the subcontinent on the basis of what was called two-nation theory, Hindus and the Muslims. Pakistan was created as a theological state on the basis of that theory. However, people had no difficulties in realizing the fruitality of two-nation theory immediately after the British left India in 1947, and people started to realize that creation of a state on the basis of religion was totally wrong at the very root. Creation of one country physically apart by 1,000 miles, linguistically different, culturally different, was soon reckoned to be a mistake. So, the demand for the creation of a country based on secular philosophy was soon came to general demand. That, however, crystallized in the year 1971 when the people under the leadership of the founding father of the country, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib, waged a war of liberation against the Pakistan forces. We achieved independence after 9 months of war. However, the forces which were opposed to the creation of Bangladesh were still alive, and they started gathering their power with the help of external forces. In 1975, they succeeded to annihilate the founding father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and also some other leaders who were with Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in 1971. They did not only kill the founding father, they also killed or tried to kill the whole philosophy on which Bangladesh liberation war was fought. As you heard from Mr. Shahryar Kabir, they changed the constitution, and instead of keeping it as a secular democracy, they made it, or they tried to make it, an Islamic republic. They didn't say it is an Islamic republic, but they brought into the constitution many things which reflect the ideals of Islamic republichood, as in Pakistan. This army ruled Bangladesh for 21 long years. During that time, the Hindu repression, the repression over the Buddhists and Christians continued, but not to the extent that the repression has taken the shape of enormity after 2001 general election in Bangladesh. Because in 2001 election, the Islamic fundamentalist parties named Jamaat Islami and another Islamic party actually became a partner in the government for the first time. Tragically, they were opposed to the creation of Bangladesh, but now they are in season of the power in Bangladesh. After they came to power in 2001, their first and primary aim was to completely annihilate the people professing religious minority religion, particularly the Hindus, Buddhists, and the Christians. The aim was to perpetrate a trend of religious cleansing. And they succeeded in doing it. For all purposes, they wanted to keep Bangladesh a Muslim country where people of no other religion shall live. They thought that if the repression is perpetrated in that sort of a manner, they would leave Bangladesh and take sanctuary in India. Many of them have done so. The Hindu population used to be, before that, 12%, which was reduced after that to 8%. There was a mass exodus of Hindus after 2001 election victory by the present government to India. I was a judge in the Supreme Court at that time, and as a judge, I had the experience of knowing the horrors of repression that were perpetrated against the people of minority religion in Bangladesh. There have been many. If I give you the names and the instances, it will be days. However, only a few incidents attracted the newspaper headlines. All of you may have heard about the ordeal Purnima suffered in the hands of the people who are in power now. You also may have heard the ordeal of Radharani and also the story of the burning of a village in southern Bengal, where many Hindu homes were burnt, as a result of which many Hindus were actually killed. This trend still continues. Even now, at the moment when we are here, the Hindus are being subjected to repression. Hindu women are being subjected to sexual assault. The Hindu temples are being subjected to destruction, the Hindu homes to arson. Unfortunately, all these are happening within the visibility of the police. It is a well-known fact, supported by many newspaper items and claims and editorials, including that of Daily Star, which is often cited in US State Department report, Amnesty report, etc., that the police are generally reluctant to accept any case. In fact, the police are unable to do that because the perpetrators are the members of the ruling party. A generally accepted fact. As a matter of fact, the ruling parties have so far, until recently, been denying that fundamentalist forces do exist in Bangladesh. You must have heard that 3 journalists from a British television channel were arrested a couple of years ago because they wanted to make a documentary film on the basis of the repression of the minorities in Bangladesh. They were kept in detention for over 3 weeks, and their partners in Bangladesh were subjected to severe torture. Now, these Channel 4 crews were released only after the United Kingdom and the US authorities put pressure on Bangladesh. The Reuters representative in Bangladesh, who happens to be Bangladeshi himself, was arrested and subjected to severe torture simply for saying that fundamentalist forces are present in Bangladesh. He had to take political asylum in Canada afterwards. Finally, however, very recently, the government and the Prime Minister herself admitted for the first time that yes, fundamentalist forces are active in Bangladesh. Now, yet they have failed to take any action against the fundamentalist forces. There is a person called Bangla Bhai. Many of you may have heard of his name. He has been operating a crusade against the progressive and the secular people in Bangladesh The government always says that he would be arrested, but that order or that so-called decision has never been materialized. He is still at large in Bangladesh. Recently, August this year, the fundamentalist forces proved their ability of even assuming power at gunpoint by blasting bombs simultaneously at all the districts of Bangladesh. That really worried us, the members of the civil society. We're horrified at the strength these fundamentalist forces had gathered under the protective umbrella of the present government in Bangladesh during the last 4 years. They are saying that they will destroy all the civil courts in Bangladesh, and their targets are the judges now, because they are dispensing justice under alien legal system. They want introduction of Islamic law in Bangladesh, and until that, they will continue to kill the judges. Again, nothing has been done effectively to contain this trend of the upsurge of the Islamic fundamentalists in Bangladesh. There have been many other incidents of killing. People who stands for secular philosophy, leaders like Shah Kibriya have been assassinated. No important person has so far been arrested, let alone being prosecuted for the offense. Now, if this trend continues, ladies and gentlemen, not only the minorities in Bangladesh, but the people at large in the whole subcontinent and adjoining areas will face a situation for which they shall regret. I can see that if this trend is not arrested now, the time is not very far when Bangladesh shall become something like Afghanistan. As a matter of fact, those Talibans who fought in Afghanistan have now gone back to Bangladesh and found safe sanctuary there under the protection of this government. The partners of this government, Jamaat Islami and Islamic Unity, JOT, they are openly advocating for the protection of Taliban forces in Bangladesh. They have always done that. They have also said that we will turn Bengal into Afghanistan by converting it into a Taliban state. And they have been doing it. Unfortunately, nothing has so far been done effectively to contain that situation. And I would say the time has come that the international public opinion is created to remove this cancer of fundamentalism from Bangladesh. And we are grateful to Shahryar Kabir for the efforts he has undertaken to project the state of religious fundamentalism in Bangladesh, the state of repression on the minority people. With that, I wish his book a success. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, can I call upon Brad Adams now from Human Rights Watch to come and address us, please? You brought something with you.
Presents. Well, thank you very much for the invitation, and congratulations on the publication of your book. And being the last always means that everything I wanted to say was just said. So I think I'm going to, instead of trying to tell you what you already know, because you all are much more expert on Bangladesh than I am, I think I want to just talk to you very briefly about a couple of projects we've been working on that relate to religious persecution, and then talk about the international environment and ways in which I think these issues can be raised successfully, and maybe also just give you a sense of where some of the most important international actors are, where their thinking is on this subject. I often leave these kind of meetings feeling like everyone in the room knows the problem, but there isn't a clear discussion of strategy about how to go forward. So maybe I can try to play that role tonight. The first thing I want to show you is a report that we released in June. This is on attacks on the Ahmadiyas in Bangladesh. This was released at a press conference in June in Dhaka by me and some of our staff who worked on this. And I have to say, there are two very disturbing things, and I would say one hopeful thing that came out of this experience. The disturbing thing was that there was an admission by the government, by the justice minister, that what we documented here was accurate. When we first heard that, we thought, that's excellent. You know, that's progress. The only way you make progress with the government is for them to admit a problem. But he then said, essentially, it doesn't matter. I paraphrase, but this is essentially what he said. It's true, but it doesn't matter. This showed a certain level of sophistication in being willing to admit a problem, and a certain level of arrogance and lack of commitment to the rule of law from a justice minister to say that it doesn't matter. The second thing that I thought was very disturbing when we released this report was the fact that this was taken up as a partisan political issue everywhere we went. BNP bad, Awami League good. And actually, I would have challenged any thoughts there are in the room that Awami League good on religious minorities is actually a fair equation. Awami League better, Awami League more hopeful, but there have been these problems for many years. They didn't come out of nowhere. And I think it's very important to depoliticize this discussion, not have it line up on party political bases, and to remember that even with an election victory, it's going to be a very hard road to address religious persecution in Bangladesh. And it may not be, while it may be one of the leading charges of the Awami League and their friends in opposition, it may not be at the top of their agenda when in government. And I think that's a challenge for what I'm guessing are probably many Awami League supporters in this audience and people we spoke to in Bangladesh, to insist that what they say about it as a critique out of power, if they get into power, becomes policy. I think that's very important. The steady erosion in the population of Hindus has actually been a long-term phenomenon. It's been dramatically worse in recent years, but it's not new. And no government has actually made that the top of their agenda. What was hopeful about my time there was that there was no embassy, there was no international institution that we spoke to that didn't think this was very serious. That hadn't, and this includes even the World Bank, that didn't realize what the stakes were for the country. Now, within that broad area of concern, broad consensus of concern, there are different opinions. And I will have to say that until August, I think some of the embassies didn't really understand how serious the fundamentalist threat could be to the country. I think it took that one day of bombings, which actually was the purpose, right? The purpose was to tell the government, if you don't do what we want, if you don't suit our program, we can step it up. We did this with complete impunity. And we tried not to hurt anybody. That must have been the purpose, even though there were some deaths. They must have tried not to hurt anybody, to have that many bombs go off and have that little human damage. Must have been their purpose. But that they were able to do it, they were able to walk away from it with complete impunity, is a double-edged sword. One, it reminds everybody, and yes, the Prime Minister finally had to admit that there was a fundamentalist problem in the country. It reminded everybody that there is a fundamentalist problem. But at the same time, it showed just how far above the law they are right now. Probably how deeply entrenched they are in the security services and the intelligence services. Can you imagine that the Bangladeshi intelligence services are so poorly informed that they knew nothing about this in advance? When journalists, human rights workers, activists try to do something, they're all over us. They know where we're going before we go. So that actually is a double-edged sword. It is very frightening, the power they just projected, and the message that they've sent. Now, did the Prime Minister understand the stakes seriously, or was it just a rhetorical statement? I mean, that remains to be seen. I think there's every reason to be concerned that it was just rhetoric. And as long as the JI and IOJ remain in the coalition government, I think that we can say that it is rhetoric. I think that, and this is something we're talking to governments about, that's a litmus test. If you think that you have a partner here in the war against terrorism, war against fundamentalism, or whatever you want to call it, I don't like the war against terrorism language myself, whatever it is that you're talking about, then they cannot, a legitimate, respectable government can't have these kinds of coalition partners. The same would go for the Katme Nabuet, the people who are calling for essentially the expulsion of Ahmadiyas. As you all know, I think that their program is to force Ahmadiyas to deny their own faith by putting up signs that say, this is not a mosque, in front of their mosque. We take the view that it's up to every religious sect and every religious group to decide what they are. It's their choice if they want to call themselves Muslims and if they want to call their places of worship mosques. And that behavior is tolerated. It's completely tolerated, it's completely known. The organizers of it are completely known, and no action is taken. So, what are the promising avenues here? Well, this government here, I have to say, gets it. Their embassy understands it. They have, I think, a fairly sophisticated amount of information in the embassy, and that's important. The United States, they're starting to get it. I was told in June by a senior embassy official that the fundamentalist threat was overblown. Yeah, there are some little camps, but it's not serious. We don't take it seriously. We don't think that it's going to go very far. Furthermore, if an election were to happen, the JI has a ceiling on their votes. Their vote bank tops out at 10%, I was told. So I think there was some serious complacency there. I think that has changed after August. I think they understand. But you have to understand, when you're dealing with the United States, you have mixed motives. Why has the United States taken up religious freedom around the world? Well, largely to protect Christians and largely to open space for Christian missionaries. Right? This is very controversial. This is what the Republican administration is appealing to when they pursue this issue. Now, on the other hand, Christina Roca came, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, person in charge of Bangladesh for the State Department. Christina Roca came to Bangladesh and immediately took up the Ahmadiyas, very strongly. Brought it up with the Prime Minister, the Justice Minister, brought it up on TV in every interview she had. That's not a Christian group, obviously. So you can harness this kind of position that the United States government has to protect religious freedom as one of its main foreign policy goals after the war on terror and some other things that we all may not like. But one of their main positive foreign policy goals. But I don't know how much, I don't know how much people understand that even though they have a set of motives that some of us may be uncomfortable with regarding opening space for missionaries, etc., that this is a real opportunity that actually may close when this administration leaves office. This is being said by someone who's a serious critic of this American administration. There is an opportunity here, and I think that you all need to take it up. And I think that, as everybody I met in Bangladesh told me, the most important external actor is the United States. For better or worse, it's the United States. The British can provide a foundation, and the way I see the way the British and the United States often work, particularly in the subcontinent, the British know a lot more. The Americans rely on the British often for their intelligence, their knowledge, their political analysis. The British can play that role positively. You need to mobilize the British, though, to push the United States to have a strong position. Where this is going to come up is on something like the election, whether there's going to be a boycott. The United States is against that. It is going to be United States policy to oppose a boycott, and therefore unintentionally punish parties that do boycott. I think that's not sufficiently appreciated as well. That's their current position. Whether it will remain their position is unclear. But if we believe that political change is necessary to address religious persecution, and the United States is opposing a boycott, and the major opposition party is thinking very seriously of a boycott, there's a problem. and it's a problem that requires some mobilization and some strategic thinking. I want to say one other thing, which is slightly off subject, but it has to do not with religious minorities, but minorities. We also published a report a little over 2 years ago called Ravaging the Vulnerable. It's about attacks on unpopular people. Female prostitutes, male prostitutes, gay men. If the liberal political class in Bangladesh is concerned about minority rights, this is actually an extremely serious subject. And I'll tell you for two reasons. One is a matter of principle. These are the most marginalized people in society, and the police routinely beat them to a pulp. They rape female prostitutes, they rape young boys in custody. All here on the pages. You're welcome to have a copy if you want to. Second, as a pragmatic matter, the HIV/AIDS epidemic has not taken off fully in Bangladesh, but if this kind of behavior continues by the police and it drives the sex trade underground, it will take off. And your kids, the next generation, the younger generation, because you're mostly an older group, the next generation is going to have a very serious problem. It's in India. It's spread like fire in India. It's in Burma. I mean, there's really, you're in a bad neighborhood in Bangladesh for this. So far, relatively so good. But this is the way it's going to spread. Keep repressing sex workers. Keep beating them, driving them underground, where they don't get health care, where they don't get access to what's necessary to prevent the transmission of HIV/AIDS. Thank you for letting me make my little advertisement on the last point.
And I think we should now go back to you and launch your book. All right? I think that's what we do first, and then we decide whether we want to discuss all kinds of things. So I think you have already spoken before many of you came here. Sharia Kabir already addressed us all. And I said, hold on, at a later point in time there will be more people. And I was right, there are more people now. Yeah? So I think you should unwrap this now.
Professor Manesky, it would be my privilege, and it will be honored if you unwrap the publication, and I would like to have Brad and Abbas with him.
All right.
Just to hold the publication for a while.
Okay, and we have
Abbas, please.
And we have some people here with cameras, it looks like. And so, here we are.
This is for you.
Let us hold this,
yeah,
let us hold this
I can
together.
hold
Okay,
it.
here we are. All right. So this is 1500 days of minority persecution in Bangladesh, in Bangla, which I can't read, I'm sorry, but also in English, yeah?
Well, with your permission, I'd like to say a few words.
Yeah?
Just these volumes, 3 volumes, it is published in Bengali, and we are planning to publish a summarized, version in English, and already a brief introduction of the white paper we have already translated. You can obtain this summary from our workers. It is priced for only £5, and these 3 volumes is priced for £50. Those who want the copy, you can contact Sujit Sen. The copies are with him. But right now, you can have the English summary of the white paper for £5. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Congratulations from my side and from our side here. The English version obviously is going to be much more accessible, but on top of what people said earlier today, this is not the first publication about the fact that there is persecution against minorities in Bangladesh. I have at home in my library at least 10 books in English and in Bangladesh, in Bangla, on this topic, Yeah, this has been, as you also said, yeah, an issue for a long time. It is not like it only started in 2001. It started much earlier, but it seems quite clear from what again we have heard today that it has become much worse after 2001. That is quite clear, yeah? And all the speakers today, and also in June, many people speaking, told us very clearly that things are becoming worse. And you also heard, if you were there, that the High Commissioner simply said, nah, there is no problem whatsoever, yeah? There is nothing that is a fact. You are creating facts, you are manipulating all of us here, and you are manipulating sort of public opinion against my beloved country and all that kind of stuff. We've heard this. And you also heard him say that there are 140 million Hanafi Muslims in Bangladesh. And he basically denied the physical presence of anyone who is not a Hanafi Muslim in that society, quite clearly.
Yes.
Yeah? But I thank you for pursuing this and for giving us more evidence, because it continues to be a fact for us here that this is denied, that these kinds of facts that are happening on the ground are simply dismissed as not sufficient evidence, as kind of, hearsay or something like that. Yeah? Or if you get, for example, claims of asylum seekers giving us all the facts of what happened to them, that we then hear, well, this is all made up in order to, gain access to the UK or to some place in Britain, in Europe or whatever. I hear this all the time, and it is just amazing with what simplicity, a simplicity that is remarkably similar to that exercised by the High Commissioner, of course. Yeah, these things are just thrown out as, oh, you're creating this, you're exaggerating. Yeah, this is not a fact. And I've seen by now enough to be very sure that what you're doing here is not manipulating some facts, yeah, or creating something out of thin air. Yeah, these are facts, and these pictures here, are not dramatized events that are simply put there for the camera, but this is reality as it happens there. Okay, I'm wondering now whether we should have a discussion about certain points, and if so, I would like us to draw up some kind of agenda, because we can be here forever, we can discuss this forever, the problem isn't going to go away, yeah? But you have raised the issue of, okay, there are certain recommendations that have been made already and that are not, if I may say, new. And one could ask, okay, how realistic is it that any of these recommendations are actually taken up? Not only by the present government, but by any government in Bangladesh. Because I think what we are all saying is, there is, and you two have just said this again, yeah, that here is a climate of violence. It's not only gun violence, it's acid throwing violence, it's all sorts of violence, yeah, sexual violence. A climate of violence in which the perpetrator knows that he, and it's mostly he, of course, not always, but mostly he, will not be touched. Quite clear. And this has escalated over time, quite evidently, in a way that I just find mind-boggling. And not unbelievable, because it's there, all right? But really dramatically difficult. And I wonder, how can a country, a whole country, get out of this sort of spiral of tolerating violence of this kind of description? And I'd like to ask you, yeah, rather than giving us these recommendations, which we know will maybe not be looked at, what are your own views on this? How can your society as a whole, yeah, be spiraled back, if you like, into a situation where things are a little more tolerant, and a little more tolerant of difference? Because the key issue in all of this is, and this is what we're doing at SOAS, at this university, we're studying here, not just for Bangladesh, okay? Why it is so difficult in the world to accept difference. Yeah? Why are we fighting all the time over some vision or ideal of a uniform pattern of something, and we, in the process, kill off everything that doesn't fit into our vision of this image? Yeah? So what are you saying to us about the chances for Bangladesh, the possibility, if you like, of respect for difference in Bangladesh?
Well, this phenomena, what I do believe, this is the the phenomena going on in Bangladesh, Islamization or Talibanization, whatever we say, it's a very recent phenomena. Bangladeshi society was never been a so-called Islamic society. For several hundred years, we practiced secular humanism in Bangladesh. If we go back to Chandidas, Shunoha Manush Bhai Shabar Upore Manushyato. Man is above all, what written by Chandidas in 15th century. So this is our legacy, this is our tradition. We practiced secular humanism for ages. And what we need urgently, the secularization of Bangladeshi society. As we had this constitution of 72, definitely we have to go back to our 72 constitution. And we have to educate our younger generation. What does secularism mean? What does democracy mean? What does pluralism mean? And why it is necessary for a modern society. With this, sectarian views of this fundamentalism or fascism, fascist view, we cannot survive. We cannot come up with this, other, advanced countries in the West. So that is one thing to be understood. And what we are doing right now, we are setting up libraries with this Nirmul committee, particularly in those remote areas where this Jamaat Islami or other fundamentalist Islamist parties have a strong hold. We are trying to educate our young generation on secularism, on human rights, on human values, and above all, scientific developments and achievements that is urgently needed in a backward society like Bangladesh. That we fought for a secular democracy in 1971. As you know, we have legacy of 71 liberation war. 3 million people sacrificed their life for a secular democratic Bangladesh. That cannot go in vain. So that's why, what we do believe, a secular democracy could be the only guarantee, not only for the protection of the minorities, it is for the advancement of the society, for scientific development and the human values, to develop the human values. This is the only alternate what we have.
But you are saying that we might agree, but what do we do with the people who do not agree? How do we
Professor Menisky, as I said, that this Jamaat Islam,
educate?
Yeah, this Jamaat Islam and Islami Utkujot, if you go through the electoral, results, they have only 6 to 8% vote. It is just because of BNP this time, they got 17 seats in the parliament. So we have to address this, nationalist party like BNP also, that this Jamaat Islami is not going to spare you. And there are a lot of evidences. Recently we have seen when Tariq Zia was moving different places and to organize his party. In Shatkhania, there is a constituency, where Jamaat Islami defeated BNP candidate, violating that went against the decision of the four-party alliance. They defeated BNP leader Colonel Wali in that constitution at Shatkhania. And when Tariq Zia went there, all the BNP grassroots workers, they appealed, they urged Tariq Zia, protect us from Jamaat Islami. They are killing our workers, our activists. Now BNP also become very vulnerable. Gradually it is becoming very vulnerable because of the threat from Jamaat Islami. So BNP also has to understand. So that is what, we are having these dialogues, even with BNP, particularly in the rural areas, that if you leave these areas, if you create the ground for rise of the Islamic militancy, definitely that is also going to affect your interest also. Now, last time, they contested from 30 seats. this Jamaat-e-Islami with the support of BNP. Now Jamaat-e-Islami is demanding in the coming election, they are demanding 100 seats from BNP. So where does BNP stand now? And the next election in 2011, definitely they will demand 200 seats from BNP. So this is the way BNP is also going to be, wiped out from Bangladesh. So that is what we have to make them understand. We have to, unite the people of Bangladesh that we did in 71, that religion-based politics cannot serve any good.
There's a man at the back who had his hand up first, and then you, and then you. Yeah? Yeah.
Well, I would like to know about the
Can you stand up, please?
Come forward, go there.
No, stand up and speak loud.
You have suggested that we should go back to 1972 Constitution, but what I personally, my view is 1972 Constitution could not ensure the secular attitude of our political leadership, because at that time, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, he went to Lahore Conference or YC Conference as a leader of Islamic State. He could not stop religious education system like madrasa education. He supported Islamic Foundation, which is a pretty fundamentalist organization now. And the 1972 Constitution could not ensure the rights of ethnic minorities as well.